In this video, we're going to break down the design of this really awesome solar panel setup from Paul. This is really cool. This is made entirely out of EMT conduit and maker pipe connectors, which if you're unfamiliar with those two materials, EMT conduit is something you can get off the shelf at different hardware and home improvement stores. You'll find it in either 5 or 10-foot sticks in the electrical aisle, and it's in various sizes. And then maker pipe connectors are something that we manufacture in upstate South Carolina, and they combine with those pieces of EMT conduit, and you can use them to create all kinds of cool stuff, just like these solar panels. And you don't have to do any welding or use any power tools. You can just assemble connections with a 5mm hex wrench. You can cut EMT conduit with a handheld tool, and it's a really simple and a really great way to put together projects like this around your home and garden. And this is a really awesome setup for solar panels that Paul put together recently. And I just wanted to highlight and break down the design because it's really simple overall, and I think a good way to make solar panel stands if you're looking to do something like this at your home or somewhere. And this was built in their backyard, as you can see here. And we got a couple photos of the frame, and then we've got some photos of it kind of all set up, and we can see from the cameras here, like on their back porch and things, we can see they got quite a big setup back here, and it's totally customizable. You know, they've got 3 panels on the front one, 4 in the middle one, and then they've got a bunch in the back, so you can customize this and based on the panels that you have, based on the space that you're working in, and totally customizable. That's kind of the beauty of EMT conduit and maker pipe for this kind of project. And so we'll kind of just go through here and break down the design, and it's really simple overall. So we've basically just got a tall vertical in the back extending up here from the ground, just going all the way up, and then we've got a vertical in the front here, and we can see there's quite a bit of those. So there's a vertical. We usually recommend that you space apart every 4 to 5 feet, and then you have some sort of brace or reinforcement in there. And it depends on the weight of the item that you're putting on top of the frame. If you're putting a bunch of books on there, if it's a shelf inside, then you might have to shorten that span. But if it's a lightweight solar panel or something not too heavy, then you can kind of play around with that and kind of test it and see the dimensions that you should use in your build. But it looks like these are spaced apart a good amount. Maybe it looks like 5 feet, I'd say. Kind of hard to tell from the photo, but essentially just spacing these verticals apart. We've got the short verticals in the front, and you can customize that dimension based on how high you want the front to sit. And then in the back, we've got this taller version, and that's what creates this angle. So the panel is angled toward the sun. Looks like they've got a fence right behind it, so that even if they had it angled the other direction, the sun wouldn't be able to hit it. So it looks like they're just kind of utilizing the space that they have and creating this angle where it kind of sits pretty similar to the top of the fence there. So that's a really good idea, and essentially they're just using the maker pipe T connectors, which just grab onto the verticals here and grab onto the verticals here. And like I said, you don't have to do any welding with maker pipe connectors. So and the reason that is because the conduit terminates inside of the connections in various places. The vertical is actually continuously running through the top half of the T, but this piece here is actually terminating in the 2 T connectors. So it's terminating there on that side and then there on the other side. And then essentially just going between those 2 T connectors just to kind of reinforce and connect the front and back pipes. And it's that same way all the way down. And there's more back here too that I didn't highlight, but it's pretty much just the same design all the way down. And like I said, you can customize the dimensions of this and shorten it if you only have 1 or 2 panels, or keep going it pretty much forever if you want to just keep adding frames. And something to keep in mind with this is if you do extend the length of this, or you need to make it longer here on this pipe, you can always break up connections and kind of extend the length. If you go much farther than this, I would recommend adding a vertical. So you'd want to use the 180-degree connector, which would allow you to essentially join these 2 pieces back together and then also add a vertical post. So if you need to reinforce this, then you could use the 180-degree connector there. Looks like it wasn't necessary for them in this frame and with these dimensions. Another connector that you can use if you need to extend, let's say this is, 15 feet, and you wanted to separate that into 3 pieces for some reason, you could separate that, put the 180 in the middle, as I mentioned, just to add that vertical support in the middle. But then you could also use the maker pipe coupling in this other section if you wanted to just join 2 pieces side by side. You could do that. That could be a method for that. We see people do that for different reasons. Maybe it's for storage. If this is going to be used at home and then broken down and taken to camping or something, a lot of different reasons you might want to do that. But you have a lot of customization possibilities when you make something like this. But essentially, this is the main part of the frame, just the verticals in the front that are short, verticals in the back that are longer, and then the T connectors to join those front to back pipes. And then up here, we've got more T connectors being used on top of the verticals all the way down here, pretty much at the top of every single vertical is a T connector. And what that's doing, that's allowing Paul to actually create this long horizontal span of conduit, and that is what's supporting the solar panels. And so I imagine this is much longer than 10 foot all the way to the very end. So they probably did have to use some maker pipe couplings along this just to kind of extend the length. Like I said, you can find EMT conduit in 5 or 10 foot lengths, and then you can use couplings and different connectors strategically to add length to your projects. But I would imagine there's couplings in here, probably just somewhere halfway between each vertical connection point with the T connector. Like I said, you just have to kind of customize that based on the dimensions that you've got. But essentially here, we can see that we've got this long horizontal span, and that's actually what's supporting the solar panels on the top and the bottom here. So if we go ahead and we'll save that, and then we'll go look at this one, we can see a kind of a close-up of how these are mounted, which is really creative, and essentially just utilizing the inexpensive conduit hanger straps, which wrap around the EMT conduit. Then they have a flat mounting point that is actually bolting to the solar panels, as we can see here, and pretty much just using as many of those as you want all the way down just to secure the EMT conduit to the solar panels, or vice versa. And it looks like they're just utilizing the holes that came pre-installed in the solar panels just to mount those in place there. So that's really, really simple, nice and easy, and a good way to mount solar panels. We've seen quite a few people do that with different various roof racks and things. So that's cool. And then we can see they're actually using the conduit in the build and kind of have the wires and cables wrapped around it. So that's cool too. Really great idea for that. We can see at the very bottom here, we can't really see how they're using these footers. I think it's just kind of meant to be a stable base, so the EMT conduit is just kind of running through the footer there. I don't know if it's mounted to it in any way. We've done a video on some concrete anchors that work really well. We saw another solar panel project where they use TrueBolt like anchors to mount the verticals. That's something that you can check out. I'll link that video down below if you need a good way to anchor this, to a concrete slab, or if you want to make specific footers for the bottom, you could do that too. But of course, you'll want this to be secure in the ground. We've seen people also hit rebar stakes into the ground and slide conduit over it. You can do something like that for this project just to add some security. But it's pretty simple overall, just a bunch of T connectors, and then you mount it with the electrical hanger straps, and then you can customize this frame. And like I said, you can make different sizes and kind of customize this exactly how you need it for your dimensions and for your solar panels. And if they're heavier, then you can add more bracing really easily. If they're lighter, then you make it space apart the verticals differently. All kinds of possibilities with this. So thanks so much to Paul for sharing this with us. Hopefully you found this inspiring if you want to build something similar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or comment down below with those. We'll do our best to help. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.